Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something that is honestly truly fascinating. We're looking at a massive structural paradigm shift in the world's most popular sport. I mean, for decades, the glory, the front page headlines, the massive boot deals, they've almost exclusively gone to the goal scorers, right? The flashy forwards, the creative number 10s. But recently, a quiet revolution has been happening right in front of us. Today, we're going to explore exactly how the most unglamorous, gritty position on the entire pitch, the defensive midfielder, somehow became its absolute most vital.
Okay, let's dive into this because it really poses a genuine mystery when you think about it. The entire fundamental objective of football is to put the ball in the back of the net. So, how on earth does a player whose primary job is to, sit deep, break up opposition attacks, and play simple 5-yard passes sideways, how does that guy transcend all those attacking superstars to be recognized as the absolute best player in the world?
Well, to understand just how insanely rare this is, we just need to look at this number right here 28. That's the number of years it took for a defensive midfielder to win football's ultimate individual prize, the Ballon d'Or. Think about that for a second. Not since Matthias Sommer, all the way back in 1996, had a defensive anchor been crowned the absolute best player on the planet. That is, of course, until Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante, who we all know better as Rodri, finally took the prize in 2024.
So, to figure out exactly how this happened, here's a quick roadmap for today's explainer. We've got 1. The invisible engine. 2. Decoding football with AI. 3. The Rodri blueprint. 4. Rodri versus Busquets. And finally, 5. The ultimate validation. All right, let's jump right into Chapter 1, The Invisible Engine, Beyond Goals and Assists. We need to completely rewire how we watch the game here.
So, look, we all know that for a long time, traditional stats have been fundamentally flawed. You've got metrics like goals, assists, and even expected goals, or XG. And they are great, absolutely fantastic for evaluating attackers. But they completely miss the impact of the defensive anchors. These are the guys who literally bear the brunt of the responsibility for keeping the ball, for snuffing out counterattacks before they even start, and basically orchestrating the entire build-up play. Their gritty work is the literal prerequisite for a team to function, but if you just glance at the traditional stat sheets, their massive contributions are almost entirely invisible. Let's move to Chapter 2, Decoding Football with AI, and see how this builds into something we can actually measure. To fix this massive statistical blind spot, we're turning to a groundbreaking academic paper from Rice University that created something called GoalNet to finally quantify these hidden heroes. The researchers utilized something called graph neural networks, or GNNs. Now, I don't want you to picture the football pitch as a boring grid of math. Instead, picture it as this glowing, dynamic, living web of interactions. In this web, every single player is a node, and every single pass, tackle, or subtle movement is an edge connecting them together. And this visualization brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. The GoalNet model captures the true spatial and temporal flow of a match. It doesn't just look at one isolated out-of-context pass. It actually incorporates data from past events, creating this sort of sliding window of context. It evaluates every single interaction over time to figure out exactly how a specific chain of events led to a scoring opportunity. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that the AI uses a metric called expected threat, or XT, to dynamically distribute the credit. Instead of just handing all the glory to the guy who took the final shot, the GNN assigns credit back to the players based on all their invisible work, the crucial tackles, the progressive passes, the flawless tactical positioning. This completely, and I mean completely, shifts how we view value on a football pitch. Now, what's really interesting about this is when we actually look at the output from the GoalNet study evaluating Premier League data, the results are super startling. The players driving the most threat, they weren't your superstar strikers. Look at number 1 and 2. Simon Francis and Andrew Sermon from AFC Bournemouth. No way, right? These are non-scorers, defensive players and midfielders who were actually the biggest drivers of technical threat and team cohesion for their squads. The AI is finally proving mathematically what the real football nerds have started to see on the pitch, which perfectly cues up Chapter 3, the Rodri blueprint. Time to leave the academic theory behind and look at our ultimate real-world case study. Rodri's career arc is basically a masterclass in this evolution. He really honed his craft over in Spain, starting out in the Villarreal youth system before stepping up to Diego Simeone's incredibly rigid, disciplined Atletico Madrid in 2018. Then, Pep Guardiola brought him over to Manchester City in 2019.
And that is where he became the absolute ultimate tactical anchor in the Premier League.
Rodri literally defines the modern controller role. I mean, Manchester City's entire tactical framework absolutely relies on him. He drops right in between the center backs to facilitate the build-up, and that's the trigger that allows the fullbacks to invert and overload the midfield. He just constantly recycles possession, forcing opponents to make impossible choices. And defensively, his positional intelligence is basically a luxury insurance policy, completely eliminating counterattacks before they even get off the ground. It takes a crazy, unique blend of physical endurance and elite tactical awareness to balance a high-pressing machine like City.
Moving on to Chapter 4, Rodri versus Busquets, the duel of eras. Let's see how the position has evolved over time. To truly appreciate what Rodri is doing, we have to compare him to the man who basically invented the modern defensive midfield role, Sergio Busquets. And the physical contrast here is just night and day. Busquets was a specialist, right? A pure metronome who played like a delicate chess piece in a very possession-heavy La Liga. He was invisible because his positioning was so flawless, he prevented problems before they existed. But if you ran at him with enough pace and pure power, you could sometimes bypass him. Rodri, on the other hand, is a generalist. The guy is 191 centimeters tall, and he is built like a middleweight boxer. In the Premier League, which is notoriously the most physical, chaotic league in the world, he dominates by sheer force. He wins the duels, he wins the headers, he smashes through presses. But here is the real kicker, the output. Busquets scored just 18 La Liga goals across 15 entire seasons. It simply wasn't his job. Rodri, however, he scored 8 Premier League goals last season alone. He has evolved the position from a pure protector to a player who protects and produces. He arrives late, reads the play, and delivers those absolutely decisive moments. And that is exactly what separates the very good from the undeniably complete.
Which leads us to our final stop, Chapter 5, The Ultimate Validation, Istanbul 2023. This is where the data meets the emotion. Because behind all this AI data and tactical theory is a real human being feeling the pressure. The 2023 Champions League final against Inter Milan was the ultimate test. And Rodri himself completely admitted he was struggling. He actually came out and said, "I wasn't good in the first half. I was playing shit, to be honest." Inter Milan had set up this incredibly suffocating man-marking system. They aggressively pushed their number 8 forward, leaving Rodri looking visibly nervous and cut off. He just couldn't find the free man in City's midfield. But then, the 68th minute happens. Walk through this split-second chaos with me. The ball is being cycled deep and it draws Inter's defense out. For the very first time in the match, Inter's center back, Bastoni, jumps out of position to press. A pass finds Bernardo Silva, his cross deflects, and suddenly, boom, there is this tiny pocket of space with no one marking it. But Rodri had already taken 3 steps forward, completely anticipating the chaos. He sees this massive crowd of bodies in the box, and instead of trying to place it gently, he decides to just hit it hard, with a spin so it curves right around the defenders. He strikes it absolutely perfectly. Goal.
And that single goal won Manchester City their first ever Champions League and a historic treble. But Rodri didn't just stop there, did he? He has been the unstoppable driving force behind City's 4 consecutive Premier League titles, and then, over the summer at Euro 2024, he anchored Spain to the trophy. I mean, he absolutely dominated the semi-final against France, holding Kylian Mbappé and that whole squad to a measly 0.3 expected goals. While Busquets was a vital cog in a great system, at City and for Spain, Rodri literally is the system. His complete, total mastery across every single metric finally earned him the ultimate individual validation, the 2024 Ballon d'Or.
So, what does this all mean for us as fans? It really makes you rethink everything we thought we knew about football's traditional hierarchy, doesn't it? As AI finally gives us the tools to measure things like expected threat and all that crucial off-the-ball impact, and as players like Rodri evolve to dominate every single phase of play physically and technically, we really have to ask ourselves a question. In an era that is completely obsessed with goal-scoring superstars, are we finally witnessing the age where the invisible architect becomes the undisputed most valuable player on the pitch? Definitely something to chew on the next time you're watching a match. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep your eyes on the midfield.